Hello my lovely students and welcome to this GCSE Classical Civilisation video for Myth and Religion on Apollo, also called Apollo. Here's the bump, here's the stuff you're meant to be learning. Pause the screen to read it if you really need to. I'm guessing you probably have many times already. So, Apollo. His common epithets are brother of Artemis, bringer of plague, player of the lyre, and god of the sun. Immediately we get the idea that this is a multi-talented chap. His symbols are the sun, bow and arrows, and a lyre. Those are the things he's most commonly seen with. His responsibilities, or what he's known for, are immediately that he is the god of archery. Yes, his sister is also a god of archery, but Apollo is the guy you're going to pray to if you really want to make that shot in battle, and then hopefully he will give you some kind of divine inspiration. He's also famous for being the most Greek of all the gods. The idea of Greek male beauty is very much based on Apollo and all the many statues and representations of him. He is also connected with the law and philosophy and morality, such as it was thought of at that time. He's also, completely separately, the god of medicine, and through him his son Asclepios also became a god of medicine. Asclepion possibly one of the earliest doctors. He's also god of music, amazingly enough, and of prophecy. In fact, Delphi was the chief shrine of Apollo after he slayed the Python, a story that we'll come to later. So like I said earlier, he's a god that covers an awful lot of bases, an awful lot of areas that are very important in the development of society. His birth story, he was born to Zeus and Leto, who was a daughter of the Titans Coeus and Phoebe. Hera in her jealousy caused all lands to shun Leto, so she had to find a place to give birth that somehow wasn't the earth. And she found a floating island called Delos, and this was somehow the loophole that she was looking for. On Delos, Leto quickly produced Artemis, as if she were supernaturally reproducing herself, but Apollo, she laboured for 9 days to bring him into the world. We see them often all together as a triplet here, often pictured on the island of Delos with the sacred palm tree that you can see there next to Leto on the very left. In Greece and Rome, he had the same name. Now, Apollo originally, it is an uncertain origin, but it possibly is pre-Greek and Hittite because Apollonius is mentioned in a treaty between Alexandros of Wilusa and the Hittite king. Alexandros, and Wilusa, Ilium, possibly Troy. And so this may well be from the pre-Greek proto-form Apollon. So we don't entirely know what it means, but it does seem to be mentioned. He's a very old god indeed. Sometimes he is given Phoebus, meaning shining, as an epithet, just like his sister. In Rome, there is no Etruscan alternative to the kind of god he is because he has so many areas that he is god of. So they use the same name as the Greek god. Apollo seems to be pretty individual. He also has Phoebus, the Latin version of shining. So that links them both to his and Artemis's mother's mother, Phoebus the Titan, but also to him being god of the sun. Just like Artemis with the moon, the sun is a shining orb. So, as I said already, he represents the sun to the Greeks. He's incredibly important to the Greeks. His wide range of responsibilities shows this. And his cult centre was very much on Delos, where he was born, but also in Delphi. The Delphic oracle became an incredibly important pan-Hellenic religious site. Pan-Hellenic meaning all Greek. It didn't have to be that you were from Delphi itself for it to be important to you. It's mentioned in pretty much every Greek tragedy and an awful lot of Greek history. For the Romans, he also represented the sun and was also god of the arts because he was so popular with poets and sculptors, and this idea that he brought inspiration for these things, as well as being very much the subject of these things. He also became very important to Roman leaders after being favoured by Augustus, the first emperor, after the Battle of Actium. The Battle of Actium was Augustus's, well then Octavian's, victory over the enemies of Rome, Mark Antony and Cleopatra, which won him enough imperium or power to become emperor. And he favoured Apollo rather than Mars, because Apollo seemed to represent culture and society rather than Mars, who was really just war and violence, even though Mars was already sacred to the Romans. He had a temple in Rome built by the Emperor Augustus, and he was honoured with festivals and prayers and sacrifices like the other gods, but somehow more so after Augustus gave him his particular fealty. In Greece, he's seen as a beautiful young man, naked, sometimes with a bow and arrow or lyre. And in Rome, he's seen as a beautiful young man, naked, with a bow and arrow or a lyre. He's never bearded. He looks the same either way because beauty's beauty, eh? As I said before, he's the epitome of Greek and then Roman male beauty. This is what you would aspire to look at, six-pack and all. Some stories. Apollo had some rather unsuccessful love affairs. He promised Cassandra, a Trojan princess, the art of prophecy in return for sexual favours. Cassandra agreed to his terms, but after accepting the gift of prophecy, she went back on her word and refused to sleep with him. Apollo was outraged. He's the god of law, after all, and she's reneged on this deal. He added a condition to the gift. Though Cassandra would always speak the truth, no one would ever believe her. And we know how that went down. Apollo also fell in love, or at least lust, with the nymph Daphne. Daphne, however, did not reciprocate and ran away from Apollo. Exhausted from running, she begged Gaia, the Earth Mother, for help, and Gaia, extremely helpfully, of course, turned her into the laurel tree, and thus she avoided Apollo's advances. Well, to an extent, anyway. Another story, Apollo and the Python, and this one is incredibly important to understanding his cult centre at Delphi. The Python, a snake-like creature that lived in the hills of Delphi, had, at Hera's command, chased pregnant Leto when Hera was stopping her from giving birth on land. Apollo now went on a mission of revenge. He took his bow and arrow, newly acquired, and killed the Python with it, burying it in Mount Parnassus and building a shrine on top. The sanctuary of Delphi that he had built became a home to the priestess of Apollo. He's one of the only gods that has a female priest. Normally, the priest is the same gender as the god in ancient Greek society. And the priestess of Apollo gave oracles that were prophecies from the god himself. However, because he had killed the Python, which was technically murder, as it was only doing what Hera asked when it chased his mother, he had to atone for killing it. And so he instituted the Pythian Games at Delphi in order to atone. Overall, Apollo is a figurehead for young men, common and emperor. He is an incredibly important god, representing so much of ancient Greek and Roman culture. Don't forget to watch the rest of the Olympian videos in order to get yourself up to speed with what you need to know about them and to help you make some decisions about why they are important. Make sure you subscribe and have a lovely day.